I survived 200 days in hardcore one-heart Minecraft using a plugin created by my friend Luck. He made it possible to gain half a heart for every advancement collected. In the last 100 days, we created an OP mob farm, killed the Ender Dragon and the Wither, and even created ourselves a beacon tower. In these next 100 days, I wanted to spice things up a bit. Things get pretty wild near the end, so make sure to stick around. And if you do go on to enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You can also help me beat the YouTube algorithm by commenting something nice down below. When I rejoined the world, I thought about what I should do first. I had a ton of ideas of what I wanted to do for these next 100 days. I decided first I should take the time to upgrade our armor. I headed over to our mob farm and AFK'd on top of it for a few days to obtain as much gunpowder as possible. I needed to gather gunpowder to craft ourselves a lot of TNT. With the TNT, I planned on using it to go ancient debris mining. The next thing I had in mind was to redesign our village, so I had planned on upgrading the buildings by giving them a more aesthetically pleasing look. I saw an awesome design posted online, and I wanted to try and recreate it as close as possible. So remember, if you guys want to be featured in my video as a villager, iron golem, or any other mob, make sure to comment down below what mob you want to be. The comment with the most likes will be added in the next video. For days 105 to 108, sadly my computer had crashed while recording. The footage was corrupted and I wasn't able to recover any of it. However, I was using the replay mod and I was able to get a bit of footage for you to watch. I gathered all of my gunpowder and headed to get some sand. I knew a place nearby that I was able to gather some, so after arriving, I got to work clearing out a small area. I knew I'd need a lot because I wanted to make sure I have at least 2 stacks of TNT. After mining for what felt like an entire day, it was in reality only a few minutes long. I headed back over to my house and began crafting my TNT. It created a little over 3.5 stacks and I headed into the nether. When I arrived in the nether, I scouted out for a good place to begin searching for ancient debris. I didn't want to end up hitting a lava pool and waste our TNT. I went a little ways away from my portal and spent roughly 10 minutes searching for the perfect spot. Afterwards, I mined down and started placing the TNT. Using the 3.5 stacks, I ended up finding a total of 24 ancient debris. To be completely honest, I was super happy with this turnout. I decided to take the debris and head back up to the surface. After smelting the debris in my blast furnace, I upgraded both my armor and my pickaxe. Thankfully, I was able to record the rest of these days normally. So on day 109 to 110, I decided to build myself a villager breeder. I eventually wanted to start an iron farm as well as get some new farmers, alchemists, and fletchers. I wanted the villager breeder to look nice and not to be an eyesore, so I headed off in search of a terracotta biome. I wanted to use the terracotta because the texture is very nice to look at as well as easy to collect. I took my elytra and some extra resources and headed out to search for the Deadlands biome. Heading north and flying for what felt like forever, I ended up finding a Badlands biome about 7k blocks away. Once I landed on the ground, I began mining. I didn't bring a bed, so I mined throughout the night and gathered half a shulker box's worth of terracotta. I collected all of my items and took off, flying back home. I arrived back home on day 111 and started building our breeder. I knew what kind of a build I wanted to go for, so I started by building the breeder itself. It consisted of 12 glass blocks, 4 slabs, 1 fence, 4 beds, 4 carpets, and of course, our 2 villagers. I then started on the collection system. And after building the collection system, I began outlining the outside of the build. After a few redesigns, I finally found one that I really liked. I had quickly threw together a shack to store my villagers in order to protect them from the hostile mobs. I started out day 115 by smelting the cobblestone I had laying around. I then stole a villager and stored it inside my house. I wanted to get Silk Touch for a second pickaxe, as this would make it easier to gather stone, so I wouldn't have to smelt all the cobblestone after mining it. After finishing the small shack, I started to trade with the villager until he finally gave me Silk Touch. I went to enchant a new pickaxe and I realized I was low on experience. I headed over to the mob farm and AFK'd for a few nights to gather as many levels as possible. However, after AFKing for 2 days, I realized that there wasn't a lot of EXP. So I decided to create an Intermittent Xp Farm. I built these before, so I knew exactly what I needed. I needed a lava bucket, water bucket, 5 stacks of leaves, a name tag, ender pearls, and a Minecraft hopper with some carpet. I decided that the best way to obtain a name tag was to trade with my librarian villager. So I spent days 117 to 121 creating some new villagers. I got a carpenter and alchemist leveled up. I needed a better way of creating emeralds so I could also trade my alchemist for EXP bottles. I then gathered a ton of sand and waited for it to smelt to craft glass panes. I wanted to upgrade my carpenter in order to trade him the glass planes for emeralds. Meanwhile, I gathered everything needed in order for me to build my new Enderman farm. I enchanted some shears with Unbreaking 3 and headed over to the forest. I gathered 6 stacks of leaves and went back to the house. I then gathered a water bucket as well as a lava bucket and a name tag. I finished crafting some hoppers as well as the carpets and headed towards the end portal. For days 121 to 130, I began placing my lava down and waiting for it to hit the bottom of the inn. I placed a water bucket in order for it to create a cobblestone pillar all the way down to the void. I then went down and placed a platform of leaves 128 blocks out. I then began creating another platform for the Enderman to fall down on. I decided to go with a 12 by 6 block platform. I then went up a few blocks and began creating the platform for them to spawn. Looking back now, I should have went a lot higher for them to be one hit, but that's in the past. Afterwards, I began trying to obtain an Endermite. I went through around 40 ender pearls before one finally decided to spawn. I quickly put it into a minecart and named it with a name tag. I then sat there for a little while, gaining some EXP, when I realized that I got myself down to 2 hearts. I had run out of food, so I quickly dispatched the remaining Endermen and headed back towards the overworld. I began day 131 by assessing my current needs. I knew I wanted to create an iron farm. Iron would help me gather more emeralds as well as being a good way to create beacons. However, I decided to spruce up my village a little bit first. I wasn't too happy with the way the current villager houses look, so after doing some research, I found a build online that I really liked. I decided to try my best to recreate it and put my own twists onto each design. I started by gathering some stone with my new silky pickaxe, and I headed into the mines and went down to my wither area. I continued mining the area until I gathered a few stacks of stone. I headed back up and started laying out the foundation for the butcher's house. I proceeded to use stone, cobblestone, and stone bricks for the walls, building them up 4 blocks tall. I then went around and added windows as well as texturing the walls a bit with cobblestone and stone. I then used some scaffolding to get myself up onto the roof. I made the roof out of spruce stairs as well as some slabs. After finishing off the roof and started working on the porch section. I used campfires and made a roof over the porch, detailing it with slabs and fence gates. I then went around the back and created a chimney using a fireplace on top for a smoke effect. I added some more detail around the house using fences, trapdoors, and some leaves. I also gave the ground a bit more texture and made it wider for an easier access. I really liked how this house turned out, so I immediately started on the next villager house. I wanted to make a library to host my librarian villagers. I had a design in mind as well that I saw in an old YouTube video. If I can find it, I'll make sure to link it in the description. I went to go gather more dark oak logs as I had ran out. I realized, however, that my axe didn't have any efficiency, so I headed back to my Enderman farm and grinded out some more experience. Afterwards, I headed back to the dark oak forest with my new efficiency 4 Unbreaking 3 axe. I ended up gathering a ton of dark oak logs and headed back to my house. I began building the library by creating the front porch. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not sure how I should commentate over this build, so while it's being built in the background, I'm gonna ask you, have you subscribed yet? If not and you are enjoying the video, it would mean a lot to me if you did. Also, make sure to check out both my Twitter and TikTok. I post on both of them quite regularly, and it gives you a bit of behind the scenes footage. Also, make sure to join my Discord if you want to be included in giveaways and events where you can win money as well as some other prizes. I then spent the rest of night 148 sorting through my chests. I didn't know how to make an auto sorter, so I was hesitant on creating one for these 200 days. Perhaps in another 100 days I'll take the time to learn. So I used what chests I had, and I did my best sorting through the chests, throwing out what was garbage and keeping what was needed. On day 149, I realized I had run out of most materials building these 2 villager houses. I decided that I would go mining for a few days to try and gather some more diamonds, iron, and coal. I ended up mining out a considerable amount of my mine shaft, but my beacon didn't reach all the way down to the diamond level, so after obtaining my iron, gold, and coal, I decided I wanted to create a new beacon to reach lower into the mines. I wanted to head into the nether so I could obtain some more witherheads. First, however, I needed to gather some more food, so I spent the rest of the day and night tending to both my crops and cows. I awoke on day 150 with everything I needed to gather more wither skulls. I headed into the nether and made my way over to the fortress. I wanted to create a wither farm, but I still didn't have the correct materials, so I had to suffer through RNG with my looting 3 sword and kill as many as possible. I did, however, take in a ton of stone and cobblestone to place slabs anywhere that I didn't want the mobs to spawn. After arriving at my nether fortress, I began placing all of the slabs I had. I decided on the area that I would like for my wither skeletons to spawn and laid out an area around it. Afterwards, I traded with some piglins for fire resistance potions to keep the blazes from killing me. I placed over 2 shulker boxes worth of slabs. Now this took a long time, and I cannot stress this enough. I was zoned out while placing them and almost died in the process. However, once I had ran out of slabs, I realized I was 75% done covering the entire fortress. I then waited for some wither skeletons to spawn. I killed them one by one, gathering my skulls. I headed back to the overworld to fight the wither once more. I headed down into the mines to spawn the wither. I ate my bread to gain full health, and I placed the last head. I shot my bow, but I quickly realized I didn't grab any extra arrows. I decided to go in with my sword and start swinging. My health was dwindling fast. But before I realized I had killed the wither, I was seriously low on health. I had the wither effect for a full 35 seconds. I panicked and started running around trying to lose my hunger and eat my food to heal. I thought for sure I was dead. I somehow survived with just half of a heart. I took my nether star, lucky to be alive, and headed back up to the surface. I spent the rest of the day gathering emeralds for my beacon. I traded with my Fletcher and went to check on my other villagers. Somehow they had been transformed into zombie villagers. I proceeded to create some potions of weakness and transform them back into regular villagers. However, afterwards I noticed I only had a few blocks of emeralds, so I decided to set up an iron farm and use iron instead. I looked up a guide on how to make an effective farm. I then went out and decided to make one behind my villager breeder. I started by placing some blocks going 5 blocks high. I then placed a small platform for my redstone clock. Afterwards, I placed a platform on top of the redstone clock as well as a piston. I placed the bed and walls. I then brought my villagers from the villager room into the farm. I then added another platform on top for the iron golems to spawn. Afterwards, I named a zombie Jerry and added him to the farm. I could see it was working already, so I added the signs, lava, and water needed to make it fully automatic. I then decided to AFK it for a few days to gain as much iron as possible. On day 189, I took my iron and beacon, then headed down into the mines. I placed the beacon and began mining. However, I found a mine shaft and decided to explore it a bit. I ended up with a ton of iron as well as 32 diamonds. I decided to finish the village redesign by adding a wall around the village. I started by gathering some oak logs. I didn't really have a good area plan, however, so I took some maps and item frames and decided to plot out my design. However, I couldn't find a decent place for my map, so instead I decided I should make a war room. I decided to go for a very simple design, that way it doesn't take up too much of our time. Sadly, I didn't like the way it had turned out, but sadly I had run out of time. These 200 days were very eventful. I am seriously enjoying this series, and I really want to continue playing for another 100 days, hopefully even 1,000 days. I built a lot of cool stuff in this episode, and I seriously love how our village is turning out. The way the builds blend together with ease and designs that we have on our farms are really cool. If you guys did go on to enjoy this video, it would mean a lot to me if you guys subscribed and shared the video with a friend. Make sure to comment something down below as well to help me beat the YouTube algorithm. Also, check out this video on screen now to see another 100 days video I made. With that out of the way, remember, I love you, I appreciate you, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!